The city of Orcs never slept, even when its twin moons slipped behind the horizon and the mechanized drones drifted silent. Through the empty avenues, the neon holoads flared like stubborn fireflies against the inky sky, refusing to yield an inch of brightness. From my perch on the cracked concrete rooftop of our aging apartment block, I watched the light show rumbling freight trains outlined in electric cobalt, skycab traffic streaming in ribbons of luminescence, and, far below, the ragged sprawl of the underglow, where every alley mouth exhaled secrets. They called it the underglow because even the constant glow of Orcs' upper levels could not penetrate its depths. Here, the city's discarded outcasts, dreamers, and thieves made their homes within stacked shipping crates, retrofitted subways, and hollowed-out cooling towers. Steam hissed through rust-pocked grates, and the acidic scent of melting plastic hung perpetually in the air. It was in that half-lit world that my grandmother, Zara, had built her legend and my carefully sheltered childhood. I shut my eyes and remembered her lullabies, each note a shimmering cascade of alien phonemes. As a child, I'd trace the silver lines of her palm, mapping the constellations born in the scars of her knuckles, each one a story, she said, of a world lost to time. When I begged for tales of the Thalassian vault, she would only smile and say, "One day, little starling, you'll find out for yourself." And so I'd played at curiosity, kneading crystalline sugar tarts with halospore filling until my fingers sparkled with sugared dust. But curiosity, like spice, has a heat all its own, and eventually I burned to know more. That night, I turned away from the sky and slipped inside our apartment. The corridors of Block 19 still reverberated with the aftershocks of the Wraith Syndicate's last assault. Ricocheted laser burns along the walls, shattered holo panels flashing erratic blue ghosts, and charred scorch marks where graviton grenades had detonated. Grandma said it was a warning. "We know where I am," she'd whispered in my ear, her breath like moon mist. 2 days later, she vanished, and the apartment beneath her penthouse lay quiet ever since. I ducked into the cramped kitchen, where the only light came from a single flickering conduit lamp. The holo oven sat cold, its door sealed shut by a warding glyph Grandma tattooed in phosphorescent ink. I reached out, my palm tingling as if something under the laminate floorboards pulsed to my touch. Beneath that trap, I knew, lay the crate addressed to me in no language script, with no return address, but Grandma's likeness etched on the side. My heart thudded as I knelt to unlatch the crate's lock. The mechanism was intricate, 6 overlapping hexagrams that clicked in impossible sequence. My finger traced the glyphs she had taught me, soft as a lover's caress, and at the final turn, the lid sprang open with a sigh of displaced air. Inside lay a single silver sphere, about the size of a clenched fist, its surface alive with fractal runes that rippled like oil on water. I lifted it gently. A holo projection flickered in the dim. Grandma's voice, hushed and urgent. "My star, heed this call. Protect what you do not yet understand. They will come." The projection shattered, and for a heartbeat I thought I heard her laugh, bright as starlight before the crate went dark. A distant rumble vibrated through the building. The lamps overhead flickered, and the hum of the life grid shifted in frequency. Orcs' power grid was notoriously unstable, but this felt different, like a predator stalking its prey. I clutched the sphere to my chest, its runes pulsing against my palm. Heat bloomed across my skin, and images flickered at the edges of my vision, worlds spun of cobalt gas and spiraling crystal spires, forests that sang with bioluminescent vines, shimmering deserts under rings of ice. A click at the door froze my blood. Heavy boots scraped on the threshold, followed by the ratcheting slide of magnetic locks. I barely had time to hurl myself behind the battered sink when the door exploded inward. In a cascade of electromagnetic force, figures spilled through the breach, 6 of them, dressed in obsidian combat armor etched with the sigil of a clawed wraith. Their helmets bore slit visors that glowed like dying embers, and weapons crackled with arclight. Instinct warred with fear. The sphere in my arms felt impossibly heavy. I forced myself to breathe, remembering every lesson Grandma ever taught me about focus, about channeling the hidden currents of the universe. I whispered in the old tongue, words of invitation, of unlocking. The runes along the sphere's surface flared from silver to violet, then white-hot brilliance. The intruders paused, jerking as if struck by an electric lash. Their weapons coughed, then died. The one closest to me tried to lunge forward, but gravity betrayed him. He floated upward, mouth agape, as if invisible hands had lifted him from his boots. Panic rippled through the rest, and they opened fire. Instinctively, bolts of searing energy hissed through the cramped space, slamming into walls and igniting the scattered debris. I didn't think. I opened my palm, and a pulse of energy, a shockwave concentric as a stone dropped and water erupted. From the sphere, the apartment convulsed, sending shattered hologlass and twisted metal spinning like autogyros. When the light dimmed, the attackers lay scattered, some unconscious, others still suspended in midair, their suits sparking uselessly. Without pausing to marvel, I turned and bolted through the back door, a hidden panel Grandma had shown me years ago, disguised as a section of wall tile. It led to a narrow maintenance shaft that smelled of burnt steam and oil. My breathing came fast, and the sphere felt hot against my ribs, but it was the only advantage I had. The syndicate would send reinforcements. I needed distance, a place to think, and above all, time to understand. I dropped through the shafts, grids 3 flights down, and landed with an ankle-twisting thud. At the bottom was a service tunnel, flickering red lamplights and exposed conduits overhead. I raced forward, my boots splashing through shallow puddles of condensate. The tunnel's exit opened onto a deserted stretch of the underglow's lower level, where bioluminescent fungi climbed the walls like pale ivy. The city here was quieter, hushed by the damp and the darkness. Even stray hover cars slowed as if in respect, their headlights dimmed to a soft glow. I slipped into the shadows and dared a glance back along the tunnel. No lights trailed me, but I knew better than to assume safety. The Wraith Syndicate didn't. Back down easily. In my pocket lay Grandma's holo key, tiny and unassuming, shaped like a crescent moon. With trembling fingers, I activated it. A slender beam of pale blue light projected a map, dozens of red blips converging on my location. That would be the hunters, and likely some of Orcs' corporate security drones on standby. I tapped the brightest blip, my apartment block. Then another, smaller cluster, the archives beneath the Academy of Xenological Studies. Nearly 20 kilometers away. My mind raced. The sphere was important, no doubt the linchpin to Grandma's hidden vault. But what hunted me wanted more than a single artifact. They wanted the source, the heart of her collection, and I was the last living link. I swallowed hard. I could flee to the surface, blend into the Sky City crowds, and hope the syndicate lost my trail. Or I could chase down the only clue I had, the arcane lock on the archives vault, identical in design to the crate's latch. If I could open that vault, find more of Zayra's artifacts, maybe I could learn to wield them before the hunters closed in. My chest tightened. I thought of Grandma's final message, protect what you do not yet understand. I didn't fully understand it, but I felt its weight pulsing through the sphere and through my veins. I was no longer just her granddaughter. I was a guardian. Now, with powers I had only just glimpsed, footsteps echoed down the service tunnel rapid. Mechanical, unstoppable, I pressed against the damp wall, the sphere's runes humming in reassurance. The neon sky above might have seemed distant and cold, but down here, beneath the city's beating heart, the real story was just beginning. And as the first hunter rounded the corner, I drew a steadying breath and embraced the legacy waiting inside me. The days that followed my escape through the maintenance tunnel blurred into a fever dream of neon haze and distant sirens. I slipped through Orcs' lower levels, the silver sphere secured within a lead-lined satchel Grandma had concealed in a hollowed-out utility conduit. My senses hummed with paranoia, every flickering holo sign, every stray drone's whirring, felt like a herald of the Wraith Syndicate's return. I needed answers. The archives of Xenological Studies lay on the city's eastern fringe, a monolithic structure of glass and alloy rising above the crumbling tenements. Its vaults were rumored impregnable, protected by layers of biometric encryption and gravity locks. Yet at the heart of the archives sat a display case, an exhibit of alien artifacts, lent by Zayra herself. If they'd displayed one relic so brazenly, They must have collected more in secret depths. I was determined to find them before the hunters did. The approach under a canopy of towering steel girders. I skated across the transit rails on a strip-down mag skiff, its engines modulating a low bass hum that vibrated through my bones. The sphere sat like a latent heartbeat against my thigh, its fractal runes flickering in time with the skiff's pulse. As I neared the archives, the city's skyline sprawled ahead, a jagged forest of spires and holoads, casting strobe light ghosts over the river of traffic below. I disembarked 2 blocks away to avoid secure checkpoints, then wove through a night market lit by phosphor lanterns. Merchants hawked shadow silk cloaks and bioengineered fungi bargaining, oblivious to the high-stakes chase unfolding around them. My reflection shimmered in a vendor's mirrored stall, hood drawn low, goggles tinting my eyes violet. The sphere's glow suffused my silhouette with an otherworldly aura, but no one spared me a second glance. In the underglow, oddities were. The norm. Infiltration reaching the archive's rear service entrance, I swiped Grandma's holokey. The scanner flared green, and the heavy doors slid open on sound dampeners inside. Sterile white corridors stretched interminably, punctuated by motion sensors and drone patrols. I clutched the sphere, whispering calibrations Grandma had taught, me tuning its runes to cloak its energy signature. The sensors flickered, then ignored me as I passed in the central atrium. A holographic atlas of surveyed galaxies spun slowly above a water feature that defied gravity. Droplets looping in mid-air. Security posts hummed along the perimeter, their reinforced shutters down. I darted between pillars, timing my sprints between drone rotations. At the end of the hall, a gravlock elevator awaited, its brushed steel doors engraved with the archives. Seal, a single press of the holokey summoned it. The ride down was silent, but felt interminable, each floor marker descending in sluggish halts, the numbers glowing colder. When the doors finally slid open, a vault corridor lay before me, thick, muted gray walls reinforced with psychoactive dampeners to thwart telepaths. I gripped the sphere tighter, determined to push onward. The vault's steel door stood 10 meters tall, inset with a crystalline matrix that pulsed with blue-white light. Embedded in its core was a hexagonal receptacle, an empty slot, shaped exactly like the sphere. My breath hitched. The realization struck me full force. The archives had expected my arrival. The sphere was one piece of a larger mechanism. I extracted the sphere and approached the door. As I slid it into the receptacle, the runes flared and the crystal matrix rippled like water. A deep hum resonated through the walls, followed by the grinding shift of massive gears. The door retracted into the ceiling, revealing a circular chamber beyond, lit by concentric rings of luminescence. Inside, glass vitrines floated in zero-gravity chambers, each containing an artifact from Zera's hidden collection, a Tsaran memory prism, shimmering liquid thought suspended within, the fractured eye of a star beast, its iris still twitching with ancient awareness. And strewn around the central dais, dozens of crystalline shards, keys. Grandma had called them, to worlds she claimed she had only begun to explore. I swallowed, the weight of her legacy pressing on me. The sphere began to pulse faster, as if racing to synchronize with the chamber's energy. I knew then the vault was more than a depository, it was a power nexus, a bridge between countless alien realms. If the Wraith Syndicate accessed this, they could unravel the threads that held galaxies together. The ambush's shadow detached itself from the far wall. Before I could react, graviton nets cocooned my legs and arms, suspending me midair. The sphere, yanked from my grasp, clattering against the floor as armored boots converged. The leader stepped forward, helmet off, even under the crimson glare of emergency lights. I recognized the high cheekbones and serpentine yellow eyes. Quinrax, the Syndicate's chief artifact hunter, curator's heir. He sneered, voice modulated by a vocal scrambler. Your grandmother has quite the habit of hiding things. Shame she never taught you how to find her. Behind him, a dozen hunters fanned out, weapons trained on me and the artifacts. Fear surged, but anger burned brighter. You'll never wield those keys, I rasped. Grandma's vault isn't yours. He stepped closer, boot heels echoing. Oh, but it is, he whispered. With the power here, we'll reshape reality itself. And you," he raised his charge lance, "are the final lock." The lead hunter lunged, but the sphere, lying inert on the floor, began to roll. Runes ignited. It levitated, drawing power from the chamber. Light arced between the floating vitrines, stitching them with energy tendrils. Alarms blared, klaxons drowning out Quinrax's taunt. The floor panels shuddered. I summoned every lesson Grandma taught me. Calm the mind. Breathe in the cosmos. Shape your will like clay. A voice echoed in my thoughts. Trust yourself. Time fractured. The sphere split into shards that darted to each artifact, merging in a symphony of light. The prism, the star eye, the crystalline keys all bathed in violet luminescence. The netting around me snapped as gravitational currents inverted. I dropped, scrambled to my feet, and charged Quinrax, hands outstretched. A wave of energy pulsed from me, a ripple of telekinetic force Grandma had only ever hinted at. Quinrax's lance wavered, the hunters staggered. Glass vitrines cracked, releasing the shimmer of liquid memory and ghostly apparitions of alien landscapes. The chamber quaked, gears reversing. The vault door began to close. In the chaos, I seized the sphere shards, binding them back together with intent. The runes burned hotter. Above us, the vault's ceiling matrix glowed, projecting a portal, its edges humming with possibility. I didn't hesitate. With a primal roar, I hurled myself through. Escape into the unknown. Light tore me from Orcs' underbelly and spat me into a realm between worlds, an infinite expanse of swirling nebulae and crystalline structures floating like shards of a broken kaleidoscope. The sphere hovered at my side, its runes dancing in harmony with the cosmic tides. Behind me, the vault door slammed shut, and through the portal I saw Quinrax's silhouette framed against the collapsing archives. His roar of frustration echoed. Like thunder, I turned away from the closing gateway, toward the vast unknown. The artifacts my grandmother's legacy called to me, each shard resonating with a different frequency, a different quest. The journey ahead was unwritten, and danger lurked at every cosmic threshold. But I was no longer the frightened girl of Orcs. I was the curator's heir, bearer of alien keys, and the first true guardian of the Thalassian vault. With resolve stealing my spine, I stepped forward, one foot into the nebula's soft glow, and embarked on the odyssey that would shape not only my fate, but the destiny of every star-touched world across the heavens. I tumbled through the portal's shimmering veil and landed hard on fractured obsidian, beneath a sky of molten opal. My breath left me in ragged gasps as I staggered to my feet, clutching the silver sphere like a lifeline. Round me spread an alien landscape, jagged spires of black glass rising from fields of violet grass, their tips glowing with inner fire. Above, the sky churned with copper clouds that roiled like storm-tossed seas. Instinct told me I'd crossed into one of the worlds Grandma had only whispered of. Instinct and the faint, choral hum emanating from the sphere, as if it recognized the world's resonance. My rendezvous with destiny had arrived, but danger trailed me here too. I'd felt it in the panicked shouts of hunters behind me, their portal collapsing in futile fury. I scrambled over a cliff's edge and dropped into a valley where phosphorescent fungi draped twisted trees like glowing banners. Somewhere in that otherworldly quiet, something moved, first a whisper, then a chitter of rasping voices. I froze. A dozen silhouettes slipped from the shadows, each unlike anything I'd ever seen. One stood on four limbs, each arm ending in a blade-like extension. Another was a shifting column of amber-hued gelatin, its surface rippling with silent emotion. A third lurked backlit by fungi, a slender form with telekinetic tendrils coiling around it like living hair. Before I could raise the sphere in defense, one of them spoke, its voice a rhythmic chant that reverberated in my bones. "We know you," it said. "Curator's heir." I dropped to one knee, startled. "Who are you?" The four-armed warrior stepped forward, her armor woven of star metal mesh. She sheathed a blade that glowed with anti-gravity currents and offered me a nod. "I am Kalen of Herix. These are my companions, Mrith of the Crystal Marshes, Nolus of the Shattered Moons, and Syra the Seer." Syra, she was the gelatinous empath, her form flickering with inner light. Mrith was the slender, telekinetic figure, its tendrils quivering, and no less her laughter was like shards of broken glass, sharp and unexpected. "We are exiles," Syra continued, voice echoing and soft, "cast out by our own, hunted for knowing too much about these artifacts. When we sensed the pulse of the portal, of the key's awakening, we came. You carry the curator's sphere and with it, the power to unify what was sundered." I pressed the sphere to my chest. "The hunter's Quinrax, he'll come for this world next." Kellen's blades clicked. "Then we stand with you. But we must move fast. The artifacts you freed from the archives, each one resonates with a shard, hidden on a world linked to Grandma's vault. If we gather them all, we might master the sphere's full power." Syra extended her gelatinous hand, and images bloomed. On the air, a chronocron disk glinting on a moon of frozen seas. The shard of souls pulsing in the heart of a living storm. A prism of echoes buried in coral catacombs beneath an ocean world's waves. Each image burned with promise and peril. I recognized the first, the chronocron disk, the device I'd only glimpsed in my visions. "That's on the dead moon of Sidoria," I whispered. Mrith's tendrils vibrated. Its last guardian was destroyed by hunters. But the disk remained. Nolas flashed me a grin. "I've seen its holder, an ancient chronomancer. He's paranoid, afraid to use it even to save his own life. We'll need more than charm." We set out beneath the copper sky, following winding paths of violet grass that hummed beneath our feet. Kalen led the way, his anti-grav boots skimming the ground, blades drawn. Syra hovered close, her empathic field shielding us from the subtle traps woven into the planet's psychic currents. Mrith scouted ahead, her telekinetic senses prying open safe routes. Nola scouted our flanks, murmuring wry commentary on every hazard. After 2 days and 3 restless nights, we found the ruined temple of the chronomancers, a latticework of frost-cracked columns, jutting from a sea of black ice under jagged auroras. The disk sat on an obsidian dais, bathed in pale moonlight. But we were not alone. Hunters spilled from a hidden portal, their armor gleaming with broken confidence. At their helm strode a pale, skeletal figure in a hooded cloak. His eyes burned with temporal dissonance. He was the chronomancer, cracked by centuries of isolation. "Step away," he hissed, raising the disk. Time stuttered around him, each breath slowing the world, warping the air into frozen shards. The hunters advanced, but their steps looped in curious slow motion. Kalen sprang forward, weaving his blades in anti-grav arcs. He disarmed to hunters before the world slowed further until we were paused and suspended. "Starlight, the chronomancer's voice echoed, leave me be. Time is my only friend." Syra's empathic hum rose. "You guard a gift meant for unity, not imprisonment." She touched his arm. Mrith's telekinesis cracked the frozen air, fracturing the spell. Nolas leapt, wrenched the disk free, light flared. Time snapped back, hunters toppled like rag dolls. I caught the disk in one hand, the sphere in the other. The chronocron disk's twin runes synced with the sphere's fractals, and a resonant chord pulsed through the cosmos. The temple's ice walls dissolved into mist, revealing a hidden portal network, doors to every shard's hiding place. The chronomancer collapsed, tears carving lines in his frost-bitten cheeks. "Thank you," he whispered. I was too afraid to trust. We pressed onward through the portal network, each threshold depositing us onto a new world, blistering desert rings encircled by ice halos, coral realms singing beneath crimson oceans, crystal citadels drifting in voids of starlight. On each world, we faced guardians and hunters alike, specters of past conflicts, echo archers, sentient storms. Each artifact we reclaimed: soul shard, echo prism, gravity crown added its voice to the chorus within the sphere, widening its power and our connection. But the hunters adapted. Each victory came at a cost. Kellen's blades nicked and sparking, Syra's form flickering with empathetic overload. Mrith's tendrils scorched, Nola's thin grin a little more brittle. And through it all, a more terrible shadow loomed. Tales whispered by survivors spoke of a juggernaut of bone and steel, the bone-forged colossus engineered to breach any portal, crush any guardian. On the storm-racked world of Vernine, as lightning tore the sky and salt spray hissed on obsidian cliffs, we found the final shard, the gravity crown, capable of bending space itself. The hunters struck in force 100 strong, backed by the Colossus's thunderous steps. Its hollow eyes glowed like dying suns, its massive arms wielding coils of fused femur and plasma. We fought beneath a storm of endless lightning. Kalen danced around the Colossus's blows. Mrith hurled boulders with mind alone. Syrah's shield held back psychic tremors. Nolis flitted between Hunter and Colossus to slit throats with her wrist blades. I stood at the portal's mouth, the sphere and crown in hand. Weaving the artifact's energies together, the Baj Forge roared, and with a final, terrible swing it cleaved the portal's frame. Reality tore. I channeled every ounce of will. Into the sphere, fractal runes blazed white-hot. The crown amplified the resonance, and the portal surged back to life, flooding the battlefield with violet light. In that flash, we dove through me clutching the artifacts, my allies at my heels. Behind us, the Colossus's roar was cut short as the portal collapsed, sealing the hunters and Juggernaut in a dying world. We landed on a barren moor beneath a blood-red dawn, bruised but unbroken. Around us lay the gathered relics Chronocron, disc, shard of souls, prism of echoes, gravity crown, and more yet unnamed, each pulsing in communion with the curator's sphere. Kalen sheathed his blades and exhaled. We have them all. Syrah's form glowed softly. Together, we can unlock their full purpose. Nolis cracked a rare, genuine smile. Then let's go home before the Syndicate figures out how to break in. I looked at each of them, the warrior, the empath, the telekinetic, the scavenger, and felt the truth of what we'd become, an alliance forged in exile and tempered by conflict. We were more than survivors. We were the new curators, guardians, of a collection that spanned 1,000 worlds. And as the red sun rose on that silent moor, I knew the final battle lay ahead, taking the Alliance back to Oroxus, confronting the Wraith Syndicate and the Boneforged Colossus one last time, and ensuring that Grandma's legacy and the fate of countless worlds rested in hands worthy of its power. The sky on Alethra Prime was a tapestry of fractured reality ribbons of violet lightning slicing across a bruised cerulean dome, while islands of rock drifted like broken dream fragments in midair. We arrived at dawn's blood-red edge, stepping from the shimmering portal onto an obsidian spire that overlooked a dizzying chasm. Below, the Boneforged Colossus lay siege to the floating archipelago, its hollow eyes burning with malice as it stomped through the shards of rock and glass. The Wraith Syndicate's black flyers hovered overhead, raining graviton mines that shattered landmasses into stardust. I felt the weight of every recovered artifact. At my belt, the Chronocron disc hung like a promise of stillness. The shard of souls glowed with silent wisdom. The prism of echoes pulsed with memory, and the gravity crown thrummed with bending space. But here, at the edge of everything, they felt puny against the Juggernaut's fury. Behind me, Kellen's for blades hummed in synchronized arcs. Syrah's empathic aura shimmered like a living cloak. Mrith's tendrils quivered with latent telekinesis, and Nolis fingered her wrist blades, grin faint but fierce. Kalen spoke first, voice low. We hold them here. You must channel the sphere's full resonance through the artifacts and collapse the Colossuses. Core, we'll buy you time. He turned to his companions. No one falls, no one. They echoed. I inhaled, pressing the silver sphere to my chest. Inside its fractal surface I saw a vision, the Colossus's bone-steel heart, its power source lodged in a cavity of fused marrow and odious circuitry. If I could sever that link, the Juggernaut would collapse. But channeling the artifact's energies in such unison had never been attempted. It was a gamble against physics and fate itself. From the chasm's depths came a thunderous rumble. As the Colossus advanced, its footsteps cracked the floating islets like hard candy. Graviton mines exploded around us, sending shockwaves that rattled our bones. Kalen darted forward, blades spinning anti-gravity arcs to deflect the blasts. Mrith lifted shattered stones and hurled them back at the flyers. Nolis danced between Syndicate troopers, a whirling blur of lethal intent. And Syrah's empathic pulse kept our minds steady against the Juggernaut's psychic shriek. I drew the Chronocron disc, murmuring its incantation. Time slowed around us in a bubble of suspended motion. Graviton mines floated mid-blow, bullets hung in air. and the Juggernaut's next step creaked like an oak in winter. I felt the sphere's runes pulse faster, resonating with the disk's temporal field. With a breath, I released the disk's energy into the gravity crown. Space snapped, folding the distance between us and the Colossus and on itself. Its next step landed harmlessly. Yards away, adrenaline surged. I held the crown aloft, channeling its space-warping currents into the prism of echoes, memories of the creature's creation, dark laboratories, bone forges. The Syndicate's lust for power flickered through the prism's facets and radiated outward, planting doubt in the Juggernaut's fractured mind. Its head jerked, gears grinding against bio-sinew. Below us, the Syndicate troopers hesitated, confusion rippling through their ranks as the prism's psychic echo reached them. Kalen seized the moment, cleaving through graviton nets and hurling exhausted flyers into the chasm. Mrith's telekinetic torrent swept aside barriers. Nolis led the troopers into a disorienting labyrinth of folded space. Syrah's shield flickered, absorbing the Juggernaut's final psychic lash as I held the last artifact, the Shard of Souls. I gripped the shard with both hands, its soft inner light beating like a heart. Closing my eyes, I whispered Grandma's old lullaby in the crystalline tongue of the Tzara, the song of unification. She'd sung to me as a child. The sphere's runes flared violet-white, and a wave of pure empathetic force washed across the battlefield. The Shard of Souls melded with that wave, seeking the Colossus's essence. For a moment, the machine seemed to breathe, as if alive. Then, at the nexus of bone and steel, the light converged. A crack like a planet splitting echoed. Through the fractured sky, the Colossus's arms froze mid-swing. Its hollow eyes flickered with organic pain. With a sound like collapsing worlds, its chest gave way, sinew and circuitry unraveling as the artifact's combined resonance turrets. Core apart, the Juggernaut shuddered, then collapsed in on itself, a storm of bone and metal folding like a dying star. Silence followed. The violet lightning ceased, and islands of rock settled into new patterns overhead. The Syndicate's flyers nosedived or fled in disarray. On the obsidian spire, we stood, panting, hearts pounding in the aftermath. Kalen sheathed his blades and exhaled, voice echoing in the new stillness. We did it. Syrah's glow softened. The thread is broken. Nolis offered me a weary grin. Not bad for a kid with a sphere. Mrith touched my shoulder. The artifacts responded to your will. You are true curator now. I looked at the shattered fragments of the Colossus below, and then at my friends. For years, I'd chased whispers and shadows, trying to live up to a legend I barely understood. Now I felt the power of Grandma's legacy humming in every artifact, in every pulse of the sphere. Together, we stepped back to the portal's edge. Behind us lay the battlefield, behind that Orcs and the Syndicate's greed. Ahead lay Homan underglow that would never be the same. As the portal shimmered to life, I tucked the Shard of Souls safely away, feeling its warmth against my palm. Let's go home, I whispered. And one by one, we walked into the light, ready to forge a new legend for a universe that had tested us at its very edge and found us worthy.